Yang Berhormat Saudara Datuk Michael Mahin, who is representing the Chief Minister tonight at this very heartwarming occasion. Saudara Datuk George Chan, my former colleague and still my very close friends when it comes to relationship with Australia. My Australian guest, who has made this very evening quite heartwarming for me, because it reminds me of my happy times and the closeness of relationship that most of us who had the chance to go to Australia to study in the university in the early days of the 50s and the 60s. Graduating from Australian universities with that kind of background, for me, is not only the gain I have acquired in terms of getting a university degree. It has in fact entrenched me into a kind of much warmer relationship with my former university mate, my friends with whom I had a lot of dealings. And in fact, I brought a wife from Australia because of this special feeling I had for my relationship with my friends in Australia, especially those who I had the privilege of calling as mum, M-U-M. Australia still appeals to us in terms of its warmness of relationship, because I think the Australian has got that openness which I think goes well together with our desire to keep whatever relationship we have been able to build with Australian colleagues, even new acquaintance in our partnership in our work involving the participation of Australian as well as Malaysian. This trend of getting Australian and Malaysian to be engaged in some kind of common activities, whether it be employment or partnership in business and in academic, is indeed something that we should treasure a lot. This relationship with Australia, now that I think in my case is more than 50 years old, has brought me to realize that there's something about my stay in Australia that have taught me more than anything else in my life, namely to have another mom with whom I had to live as not only a student but rather like an adopted son for nearly 5 years. This kind of experience is not something that you easily can forget. It is something that will add your attachment to Australia and look at acquaintances, even acquaintances, not friends, with Australian as something that you can have a very easy relationship that enables you to speak much more openly, that makes you joke with them and prompts you to go back to Australia from time to time when you have got the opportunity. And wherever you have the influence, to get your children or some other relatives or friends, children, to go back to Australia and have the same kind of closeness of relationship. And that is much more than what friends I know that have gone somewhere else to become tertiary educations participants in other countries. Now that relationship has developed a new form in Miri, namely something that George Chan has created, getting an Australian university to establish a branch here and to make people of Miri to share how much relationship that he has enjoyed in Australia can somehow or other rub of similar feelings among Mirians at least, if not some Sarawakians elsewhere. George, I would say you're lucky to maintain your relationship with University Curtin in the form of joint venture between you people and Curtin University. This has enabled us to understand our Australian partners as well as the opportunity for more Australians to come over and work in our environment and understand us better. As a whole, I would say Australian relationship with Sarawak, I wouldn't dare say anything about the whole of Malaysia because my knowledge is not as familiar elsewhere. But listening to friends who have been in Australia, educated in Australia, having the same relationship with, like I had, enabled them to maintain quite a lot of links that carries them into a form of better and closer relationship in the workplace. I think this is much more that you can enjoy in your relationship with Australia than any other international or foreign relationship that we have. And I hope this kind of relationship will continue in the future, particularly when you have got something like joint venture like Curtin Malaysia in Miri. Nothing can contribute better understanding between people than sharing something like having your formative years spent with Australian and getting ourselves feeling much more easy in our desire to work not only in the field of education but somewhere else, particularly in other undertaking which may take the form of being partners or fellow workers in joint venture with Australian firms. I believe this is one of the most lasting relationships that I've seen developing between two countries. Perhaps because Australia is much more open. Perhaps most of us got the opportunity really this, to stay in an Australian home and feel treated like part of the family. I would like to see this continuing, may not be in the same, with the same kind of personal relationship, but at least we can continue a relationship that goes beyond just looking for the opportunity to get higher education from another country. Believe me, people like George and myself, we have happy memories of our stay in Australia, and that happy memories have kept us going back from time to time to Australia. George to Sydney, me to Adelaide, conservative Adelaide, and many, many more with people in Western Australia, because Western Australia happened to be the nearest, the most convenient, and I think equally open in this relationship between young people who went to Western Australia either for education or more and more I can see this, working temporarily here and there, picking up Australian friends and talking fair income from time to time, just to show that we have really personal relationship, much more than you can pick up with countries other than Australia. I feel we have something here we've got to keep for the younger generations. And I think it will bring us closer. Some of us have invested in Australia. Some of us have a working relationship with Australia, even in Malaysia. Some of us, of course, from time to time would go back to Australia and look for old classmates. All these things are something that you don't get easily between two peoples of two countries. And I hope it is something we can keep for the future. And if possible, to build it in some other form as we build new relationship in business, in the professions, and in international trade. That is what I see coming up for in terms of relationship with Australia. It's not only just getting education, higher education, as we thought it would be at one time. Because of this, therefore, I appreciate gathering like tonight to remind us and jog our memory of the happy times we had, and perhaps prompt us to buy a ticket and go back to Australia and look up our old friends, some probably our old moms, some our classmates, which makes us feel much more at home in Australia than most people who are visitors and going somewhere else or studying somewhere else to build up that relationship of having to share something in common. Tonight, when I see George, there's no difference between George and myself, and many more. Probably Michael Manyan and the others will bear this. There's something that you have in you. When you build with another Australian graduate, you just open up just like that. None of that reservation that you find people who have gone to other countries but not having the kind of closeness and open relationship that Australian, whether through the families you live as a student, you live with as a student, calling the head of the lady in charge us mum all over again. I think let us tonight drink to that relationship and if possible renew it in the same form or different, which I suspect to happen, because Australia has got not many neighbors very near that can give it understanding as Malaysian would be in the future. This will penetrate all our relationship in more than education relationship. And I hope this is what will make Australia nearer to Asia. And we in Malaysia having international relationship which is much more feel than just getting better education facilities and getting an experience to stay in Australia. Testimony to this can be seen. There's so many Asians now staying in most of the Australian cities. The most obvious one is of course Perth, where you can see Asian from Malaysia particularly that will try to recapture some of their feeling of closeness with their old classmates and their old whatever it's called, families that they have the opportunity to stay with, and having old classmates to feel that they are enjoying the same kind of closeness that they have when they were a bit younger, as classmates, as friends in Australia. Of course, the same thing can be recreated again in Malaysia when Australians start working in Malaysia, something that is coming more and more often in Malaysia today. Let us hope and pray that that relationship will live and make us closer in spite of the distance that Australia has got to conquer between the seas that are between us. Thank you very much. I hope whatever we have built will enable us to meet like tonight, probably more so in other forms, so that Australia is far from the places where they can rely on an old established relationship. From as a former British descendants building up a new country in the far south. May our opportunity to do this give us greater experience to build up relationship between Asia and Australia in spite of the distance. Probably in the future doesn't matter what happens, we will still be closer. Sharing work from time to time, both in Australia and in Malaysia, for other of our citizens has grown, though not in degrees that are to be taken as very common, but at least it is growing and is not stopping. Let us see that the future of such relationship will bring us continually to be together. Australia in the far south seems to be isolated on the map, but actually mentally they're getting closer to us in this part of Asia. Thank you very much.
Good day 3 of the conference.